Hello. Hi, everyone. And thank you for tuning in to Abduction from Victim to Survivor. I'm your host, Abby, and I want to introduce our podcast to you. It's about family abduction, custodial conflict, and the stories of those who've lived through it. They're stories of pain, hope, and resilience. I'm very passionate about helping people understand what family abduction is, the harm it causes to the abducted children, the searching parents, and of course, to those who love them. The podcast does this by sharing the stories of those affected and having conversations with experts in the field. I do my best to create a safe space for heartfelt and difficult conversations because this is very personal for me. My son was abducted from me and his entire life when he was 10 years old. Family abduction is a global issue. Cases cause trauma and heartache for all involved and often cause diplomatic crisis between countries. I want to emphasize that time is of the essence when it comes to recovering abducted children. The longer they remain missing, the more pain and trauma the children will experience. Today, I am so pleased and honored to have as my guest a friend of mine, Kevin, who I've known for many, many years. Kevin was a volunteer with Team Hope. And for those of you who are just tuning into the podcast today, Team Hope is a program of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It's a volunteer-based peer support network, and everyone in Team Hope has had or still has a missing or exploited child, and then we reach out to other people and provide emotional support. And Kevin, even when his children were missing and he was struggling with The Hague, which he did for 10 years, he had such a big heart that he wanted to help other people. He's a really good man, and I'm really pleased to have him here. I'm sorry he has this story to tell, but he's going to tell you his story that involved his two children and an international abduction in Belgium. So, hi, Kevin.
Hi, Abby. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Great, great, great. And thank
Good.
you so much for inviting me on today.
Oh, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. Where would you like to start?
Wow. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, start at the beginning. I'm gonna try my best not to cry, but that just goes to the pain that's still here after almost
of
30 years.
course.
It's really hard. Still, even after 30 years, and even after being reunited with my children. In fact, I just talked to my daughter today, who's actually called me today and said that she's engaged. So, but Yeah,
Congratulations.
but even with that good news, even still telling the story, I still well up in tears after
Of
even
course.
anticipating telling the story because it's still difficult.
Yes.
And just like we had talked about earlier, I still suffer from the PTSD behind
Yes.
everything that's happened uh, to me, to my family,
Yeah.
uh, you know, with this. So, but I'm gonna try my best to hold it together.
It's okay.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
it's okay, and I honor you,
I appreciate
you show your feelings. It's raw no matter how many years.
it. Yeah,
It's still
absolutely.
it hurts because it's your children.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is. And I'm sorry, I keep writing little things down as I talk about I just wrote down FBI because
Oh, so you okay.
they were 0 help. They were 0 help. So, where do you want me to start? At the beginning?
Yeah, how about
Okay.
that? Yeah.
Okay. So, we'll just start at the beginning. Basically, met my, ex-wife over in Belgium while I was in the military. And, we got married. We moved to my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, and, almost immediately things just they weren't gonna work out. And almost immediately, I just knew that it was a situation where, as my counselor at the time said, his words, not mine, "You may have to cut your losses from this situation." He says, I've talked to her, I've talked to you, and this is not gonna end for you well," is exactly what he told me.
This is a therapist?
This is a therapist.
Yeah.
This is a gentleman, he was a psychologist, actually. We had attended marriage counseling, and, he had said, "I'm not supposed to tell you everything from her end." He's like, "But I'm gonna tell you this now. This is not gonna end for you well." And he basically said, "This person doesn't care about you. She does not care about you." And, he says, "It's not about love for her. It's not about that. It's about control." And that he goes, "That does not make for a very good relationship, and certainly doesn't make for a good marriage." So, even with that, I still hung in there. We had two very, very young children. I did call my children. I have permission to use their first names. My daughter Tyler, my son Kevin, who my ex-wife tried to rename behind my back and call him Vincent. So, but I'm going to call him Kevin, or Kevin Jr. for the purposes of this conversation. And, but we had two very young children, Tyler and Kevin Jr. So I tried to hang in there for as long as I could. Uh, as these things go, I couldn't. Uh, a lot of personal attacks, a lot of I'm just gonna say a lot of police involvement, things of that nature. And, I was a professional person. I spent 9 years in the military. I had gotten a master's degree. I had really worked very hard, on my background, on my professional career. And it wasn't worth it, because I wasn't, to me, it wasn't worth what, you know, as a therapist said, she's going to ruin you. And so I was like, okay. So I commenced with divorce proceedings, and that's when she just turned up the heat.
It
And
escalated. Yeah.
it escalated to the
Yeah.
umpteenth degree, and more police involvement, more accusations, more it was bad. I mean, I don't wanna get into it, because it was really, really bad. And, so, you can't fight lies. You just can't. So anyway, um wind up going through divorce court, in the state of Ohio, where we were at the time. You have to be divorced for, or separated physically, for an entire year. We took that whole entire year. And at the very last hearing, and I don't know why this magistrate said this, and her attorney at the time said, "Hey, Your Honor, how is it looking for my client?" And why this guy said this. I thank him, because he did give me custody of my children. He says, "I think I'm leaning towards the father, because he's going to facilitate the best relationship with both sides of the family." Um,
Nice. Yeah.
and so anyway, with that, that was the last time I saw her for about the next probably 18 to 24 months. After that, I was supposed to get my children, whatever it is at that time, like, every Wednesday and every other weekend. And I remember I got a phone call. It was an odd phone call, because it had never happened before. And it was like my daughter had called me up. My daughter was, about 2 years old at that time. My son, he was a little guy. He was maybe 6 years old. I mean, 6 months old.
Wow.
And she was saying goodbye, and I didn't quite understand this, and I was like, "I'm gonna see you tomorrow." "What's this about?" In hindsight, I knew what that was about. She was taking off. She spoke, um, she spoke Dutch, she spoke French, she spoke Flemish, she spoke a little Hungarian, she spoke some Italian, and she was gone after that. Obviously, I showed up, at the house, and the house was empty. It was cleaned out. And,
I
so
know that feeling.
yeah, yeah, the
Yeah.
house, yeah. And then, of course, talked to my attorney. My attorney called her attorney, claiming that, "Oh, no, she's in a battered women's shelter." When that happens, you can't even ask where they are at that time. See, they were playing the legal game, if you know what I mean. You can't even ask where they are when that happens. Of course, nobody's battered. It got bad. So anyway, we had an emergency hearing at the magistrate's office. Magistrate did an emergency motion. I got custody of the kids, and then that's when it really started. And then, yeah, uh, you know, he uh, he, uh, uh, he had, accelerated his decision. And
Did he
so
realize that she was a flight risk?
yeah, my attorney, I told my attorney, and in fact, if I'm not mistaken, he says, no, we need the passports. And at the time, you didn't need both parents' uh signatures. My children were going back and forth to Belgium to visit their grandmother who was still in Belgium. So they had passports anyway, but
Uh-huh.
we had actually asked for them. And and in all honesty, maybe it was in my own being naive. I never thought this was going to happen ever. You just
Why
never
would you,
think,
right?
yeah,
And
you
I
just never
didn't
think
either.
as silly as she was, you just never thought anything like was going to happen, because let's be honest, you think that you're going to marry a sane, rational human being until something like this happens. And
Right.
I remember questioning myself, questioning, just myself, my own judgment for years after
Yeah.
this. And I know, one therapist that I talked to, and I remember talking to him, and I said, "Why would she do this? Why would she do this?" And he just said, "Kevin, because she could. She
Yeah.
did it. She did it because she could, you know? She did it because she could." And another guy had a great answer. He said, "Kevin, because you kicked over her white picket fence." That
Because why?
he said, "'Cause you kicked over her white picket fence. That's why." He was like, "She's mad. She's pissed. That's why she did it." He says, he goes, "Women don't like to get divorced from." That's why. He goes, "I'm just being
Yeah.
honest with you." He
Yeah,
goes,
it's not for the welfare of the children, that's for sure.
"Exactly." He goes, "You
Yeah,
kicked over her white picket fence." He goes, "You sent her home packing." And that's now she's got to explain this when she goes back to Belgium. What she's going to say, because I was a controlling, nasty, lying wife? No, she can't say that. She's got to blame you. Of
of course,
course. He
of
goes, "Of
course.
course." She's not going to say, Kevin's a nice guy just trying to, Bob, weave his way through life. He wants to play golf once a week with his friends, go have a beer every once in a while, paid all the bills while you quit your job and decide to stay home behind his back. No, he goes, yeah, he goes, no, she has to come up with an excuse. He goes, she did it because she could. So, I mean, that's going off into a little bit of a tangent. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, I got in touch with your office there at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and thank you so much all those many years ago. And you guys really got me unstuck because you really don't know what to do when your kids are stuck. I mean, your kids are gone. You call the police. Like I said, I wrote down the FBI, and you call the FBI, and I remember this one guy. He just said, "Oh, they'll come back. We deal with this all the time." Uh, you know, and then the same guy says, "We deal with this all the time. You'll just catch up to your kids later. You'll see, they'll come back in about 20 years." He goes, "You're just going to spend your wheels and your money." And you know
That's
what?
horrible.
He was right.
Wow.
But he was right. He was. I hate to say it, he was right. So anyway, um, but got in touch with your office. You guys kind of got me unstuck, and I've said this 5 or 10 times before. If there is an angel on this earth, it is Marsha Gilmer Tellis. Who, when I called that first time, and I remember I was working for a certain major soft drink company, and I closed my door, and thank you to them too, because they gave me all the time off that I needed. And once I told the same story to them, and they gave me all the time off they needed, because they had never heard of anything like this. They were like, "This really happens to people?" And I said, "Yeah." And they talked to Marsha, and Marsha was like, "Yes, this is a real thing. This happens all the time." And they
Yes.
gave me basically unlimited PTO to take care of
Nice.
the situation
Yeah,
once they talked to Marsha.
right.
And I remember Marsha said, "Let me close my door." And she talked to me. It was at least 3 hours uninterrupted. She let me cry. She let me talk. She let me yell. She let me cuss. And in the end, she's like, "Okay, now that you got it out, let's work. We got to work. We got to, because everything you just said is not going to help anything. We have to, we've got to get going."
Sure.
And And the first thing you guys did, you helped me get over there, and, you got in touch with some people over there, and,
In Belgium.
in
Y
Belgium, yes. I got an attorney over there, Dominique Janssen, who's another angel on this earth because I didn't have any money. And, same thing over there, and I think she took on, like, 2 or 3 other cases. You guys got in touch with her over there, and I think she became, like, an expert at this over there in Belgium. And, yeah, and she took this on, and she stayed with me all 10 years that we were doing this. And as I spoke to you before, the first, investigator that I hired took my $500 deposit, never got anything forward. That's something that we deal with, being left behind parents. You have to kind of you have to be careful. I didn't
very
get
care
anything, but that second investigator really, I'm talking about well within a couple of weeks, I got, pictures of my daughter. It was through a fence, so it was a little bit grainy, but I got pictures of my daughter, at in her schoolyard, so I knew that she was there. I knew she was okay. My son, Kevin Jr., he was a little guy, so he was there with his mom, but I did get a picture of his mom in a car picking up my daughter as well. And, so we knew where they were. And, obviously, I was told through my attorney, through this investigator, don't divulge any of this because, they could run again, especially because her mother had properties throughout. You just didn't want to. But at least we knew where they were. And then we got some, through the Hague, we started legal proceedings at that time. So after about, I'll try to bottle the edge here, because I could go on and on and on, but after about I went over there at least 1 or 2 more times before, to kind of get things going. And I had to go over there with my documents to say, hey, I have custody of my children. And, you had to prove it over there because over there, here it's different outside of the US, because obviously same thing. She was making every accusation of that she possibly could of abuse, drug use, you name it. You name it. The only thing she didn't accuse me of is messing with my children. So I give her that much credit if anything. But
Yeah,
anything regarding her, she accused me of because she knew that would, you know. And once all that was dispelled and disproven, finally, and I remember there was this one judge, this lady, she had to be like 80 years old. I remember this one judge was falling asleep in court.
oh my god.
I wasn't getting anywhere, and I remember Dominique was like, "Yeah, this is not good." So Dominique said, "Hey, we're gonna ask for another judge." And that took about 2 years. And then it took me probably, like I said, about 2 years to finally get another judge, and it was a very young judge. It's like, this young lady looked all of 30 years old. And it was then that this judge granted me supervised visitations in some sort of a social center or something like that with my children without my ex being there.
And
And
this was in Belgium?
this was in Belgium, yes. And, that's when I was able to spend time with my children. And it was then that I, was able to go over there for birthdays, holidays. I could bring gifts over there and things like that. But I dealt with that it was humiliating knowing that I had custody of the children, knowing that she was still making every accusation against me possible. I mean, still, she wasn't letting up on anything. Oh, she had the police outside the door of this social center and everything like that. The police were like, I don't know why she just wants us here. And they would do it. Oh, it was crazy. It was nuts. It was nuts. They social workers,
A
social workers.
social worker. Okay. Was it the
social.
same one or was it a different one
You
all
know
the time?
what? Yes. Over the course of we actually the funny thing is they said we don't know any for the first like 3 years, they said all we know is that we don't know any of the background information. And they said, we just know we're supposed to be here. We're not supposed to let you leave with the children. Um, we know that there's a police outside the door, or up the street or wherever. And we don't have any background information. And then one day, after about 3 years of this, they said, you know what? You're a pretty nice guy. You come in, you always dress nice, you bring gifts. What happened? And I told my story. And they said, wow, we never knew. We just know that, we deal with this all the time from the Belgians that come through and everything like that. And we just sit here we just know that you have longer than normal visitations, and that you're an American, because normally the visitations are like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, but yours are like 3, 4 hours long. Five,
Wow.
you have longer than normal visitations. That's all that we know. But we just know that,
That's a long
that's
time.
but they said, yeah, and I said, yeah, that you come over. Uh, and they said, wow. And it got to the point I was inviting the police in for birthday cake, and stuff. So these guys are like, yeah, I'll eat birthday cakes and things like Jolly Ranchers, stuff that they don't have over there. So I
Wow.
became friends with these people.
Yeah.
And then, we were going to court. And then after a while, the same judge, I was like, ma'am, the kids are getting a little restless. There was a little festival or fair in town. Can I take them to this fair, Um, and the social workers asked this. And they said the children are getting older, they're getting can't we? So then we were allowed to do this, and I saw the police were walking behind us, which I didn't care at that point because they were friends at that point. They knew me, I knew them, um and we were doing that, and obviously I still have pictures even here on my refrigerator of those things, me sitting on the Ferris wheel with my daughter, and but yeah, that I suffered that humiliation for a long time. Then it got to a point to where the most heartbreaking, there's a lot of heartbreaking parts of this. But then I had a glimmer of hope when uh um same I don't know if it's the same judge or a different judge. This is all over the course of a 10-year period.
Sure.
I got 2 visits over here to the United States. And during those visits to my home, I was living in Indianapolis at the time. I was working no longer for this major soft drink manufacturer. So I was like, great, maybe if nothing else, we'll have some sort of relationship where the kids can come back and forth. And so the kids came over for their first visit was in the summer, and the second visit was for Christmas.
To the States.
To the States, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
To the States. Each time my sister and my sister and my family would come and they visited them. This is after like 8 years. There's a lot in between that I'm skipping, just in the interest of your time. And so they came over, and I'll tell you, those kids, and when we were in the center, it was different. Only thing that we knew was that, th- th- I guess the kids, how kids they kind of adjust to how
Yes.
things are. They just know that, hey, when I go to see dad, we see him in this center, and this is the way it is. Um, I try not to cry. I just try to say, hey, this is the way it is, kids, and you know, and I would see them at least 2 times a year over the course of these 10 years.
2 times a year?
At least 2 times a year. Let's say 2 to 3 times a year. The most I went to go see them was one year I went to go see them 6 times. Okay. A lot of money. A lot of money.
I was gonna say that has to be so expensive. You're
It was a
flying
lot
back
of
and
money.
forth to
I was
Belgium.
doing very well at this major soft drink
Uh-huh.
manufacturer. at the
Yeah.
time. But a lot of money, a lot of hotel visits, and they weren't like 1 and 2 day visits either. They were I was taking full advantage of what this company was offering me. And but anyway, when the kids came over for
How
this
old were they about
oh
when
man,
they came for the first time?
the first time I want to say my daughter was probably 10 and my son was 8, I believe.
So
Yeah,
she was 2 years old when she was taken, right?
that sounds about right. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
she was 10
yes. That's what I
and
say. It's
he
about an 8 year
yeah,
period. Yeah.
he was a year or 2 younger,
Yes, that's correct. He's like 18 months older, right?
18 months. Yeah.
Mhm. And when they came over, they were bad. I don't know how to put it. They were they didn't talk to me for and it was like a 2-week visit, okay? Luckily, my mother was there. My daughter cried all the time. They broke things. I had CDs and they were like just storm in the yard, just anything to just disrupt. I had gum stuck on tables, under anything to disrupt. And I wondered why they were doing this because we had good visits over there. I wonder why they were doing this. Later on, I found out my niece had told me, they said, Uncle Kevin, I think Tyler has a phone in her luggage. I didn't check my kids' luggage. I didn't know. Later on, I found out that my kids were being coached by their mother. They were being coached by their mother to basically disrupt.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it not only on the first visit, they were worse on the second visit. Okay. And afterwards, they went to go see a psychologist, a child psychologist. They
In this when they were with you or when they
no,
went back to
when they
Belgium?
went back to Belgium. And now I know why. They told the child psychologist some of the most horrible things. They told the child psychologist, I didn't feed them enough. I fed them too little. I made them sleep on the floor. When I got mad, I shot my gun out in the yard, um, hit them. I did all these things. And now I know why they were being so disruptive because they were being coached by their mother. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've ever heard you've been at this a long time, much longer than me. I don't know if this is a common.
It was fear-based. They were afraid.
Yeah, they were afraid. They were afraid. And I'm
Yeah.
sure their mother says, "Hey, if you go over there and have a good time, just to let you know, you're gonna have to go see him at least once a year." I'm sure this is what happened.
Yeah. Or that
And
they'd never be able to come home or
some
something. Yeah.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
something. And I'm on the phone with my attorney, and my attorney's like, Dominique, she's like, Kevin, I'm reading this report. And I'm like, what is this? You know what I'm saying? I get mad, I'm throwing stuff against the wall. And I'm like, what? And she says, Kevin, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. This is crazy. And yeah, yeah. My daughter and I talked about this, and she has no memory of this report. She has
Good. Yeah.
she, she has no memory of this report. In fact, my daughter said that never happened. I said, no, honey. I have the report in my file. I still keep these files, and I know one day she's going to see this probably because we actually talked about this conversation. And uh, I'm debating whether or not. Well, after this, she's probably going to want to see this report that she said when she was 10, 11 years old. And I'm sure, I'm positive that she was coached by her mom all
Mhm.
those many years ago
Yeah.
to not give a good report to this psychologist.
Well, it doesn't make sense. You had such good visits with her in Belgium
Absolutely, 100%.
that And for years, it wasn't just one visit that went well,
No,
so you could
no,
hide what you
it was
really
over the course
were.
of 8 years or so,
Yeah,
8 years, and then
exactly.
those
Yeah,
last visits were with the over here to the States,
right.
and yeah, and I remember, getting mad at my niece, like, "Grace, well, why would she have a phone?" And then sure enough, I went and looked, and there was the phone. There was a phone, and of course, I called my ex. I'm like, "Why would you plant a phone in her thing?" I don't understand that. And, of course, she got mad and made more accusations about stuff, and I actually told my attorney, who said that my visits were supposed to be uninterrupted, you and, of course, that was brought up during the you know, the hearing and things. Yeah, and I'm leaving so much out over the course of 10 years, so much out. It's a shame. So, um, but um, in the end, after those 2 after those 2 visits, and after this terrible, terrible, terrible report from this psychologist over there. Oh, that's the other thing too. I had to go over there, and I also had to visit this lady, you know, and talk to her and everything. And after this lady, when she said her report, and they basically, there was really nothing that came out of it, because when I came back, I had to get some more statements from friends, from family that said none of this happened, that, Kevin's a stand-up guy, he's a good man, he's
It's
a good
4 o'clock.
father, he's all this other stuff. And it was actually my very, very good friend from childhood. I'll just call him James. And James said, "Kevin, you're spinning your wheels, man." And he was like, "You have nothing to be ashamed of." He goes, "You've done more as a father than anybody that I can think of." And he was like, "I've talked to the guys. We're not nobody's gonna write another letter. We're not gonna we're not gonna help anymore because this is going nowhere. This thing's tearing you apart. And you have nothing to be ashamed of. You gotta
Right.
let this go.
Yeah.
You gotta let this go because this thing's killing you." And with that, um, I did. I had to let it go, you know. So
Did that involve letting it go?
one, not spending any more money on lawyers. That's that's the first thing. Because I'll tell you, Abby, I I stopped counting at about it had to be easily $100,000
Yeah.
over the course of 10 years, and I'm talking about hotel rooms, meals, attorney's fees, flights.
Absolutely, yeah.
Easily $100,000 over
Sure.
the course of this thing. I had one friend amortize that that money that I took out of 401ks and everything, and I don't wanna tell you what that would amount to today, through all the different administrations and
Of
everything.
course.
I probably wouldn't be working today
Yeah.
if that was the case. And, yeah, I stopped counting at about $100,000. So the
And that
first
was just for the attorney, not for anything else, not for
no, 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 no,
travel.
that was travel, attorneys,
Oh, okay.
going over there. There was at least 2 or 3 occasions I went over there and she didn't show up for court. So I had to turn back around and just come back. She was like, "Oh, I'm sick," or "I didn't want," just more games. You know what I'm saying? Knowing that I took a 12, 13, 14-hour trip over there, spent X number of dollars on the thing, showed up for court, and she just didn't show up. That had happened a few different times. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and I hate to say this, Abby, it's just not picking up the phone. It's just not picking up the phone because the other thing was I was granted what was it back then? Skype, I think it was. We were given Skype calls.
Yes.
Now it's Zoom, I guess,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
WhatsApp or
of
whatever.
course.
But back then it
FaceTime
was
or Yeah.
Skype or I forgot what the first
I don't know, I
video.
think it was Skype.
I think it
Yeah,
was Skype, yeah, and I was
yeah.
getting Skype calls. I was getting Skype calls at 6 o'clock on Sundays, their time, which was noon our time. And it got to the point to where they weren't showing up for the calls anyway. And or they would come and they would just sit there and do like this.
They were so young.
You can't blame them. You can't blame.
Right. They
And
didn't know what to do.
and,
Yeah.
and you know what? And I really, this is gonna sound like I'm such a jerk, but I recorded a few of those. I don't think I'll ever show them. But just to say, this is what I had to deal with on my end.
Yeah.
And it was my sister who told me. She said, "Kevin, as hard as it is for you, can you imagine what they went through as young people?
Exactly. Yeah.
Can you imagine what it's like to live with, I'll say her? Can you imagine? Because kids want to please their parent.
Of course.
They have to. They have to. If not,
Whoever they're with, they want
whoever they're with, yeah, they have to please them. If not, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I have ADHD, by the way, so I'll skip around, and that goes to something my daughter told me when I finally got that call that we've all been waiting for, because it was, yeah, it was about another 7-8 years or so. And my daughter called me up, and we had spoken a few times in between that last call. And my daughter, who is 28 now, I'm sorry, 29 now. So 2 years ago, my daughter called me, and even though I didn't raise them, so to speak, you as a parent, you still know that when your child, the certain way they say your name. And my daughter was like, "Dad." I was like, "Oh." First of all, she called me. They never called me. And I said, "Yeah, honey, what's going on?" And she's like, "Can you talk?" It's like, "Yeah, sure. What's going on?" And she said, "No, I just want to talk to you." I said, "Oh, okay. What's happening?" And during the course of this call, and just going back to what we said about pleasing that parent, and in the course of this call, and this broke my heart. And my daughter was telling me that, yeah, all throughout her life, she said that she had always, like, her mom, if she did something that didn't please her mother, it was always, "You're just like your father." Or your father would always say that. Or you look like your father when you did this. Or something of that nature. And that just broke my heart. I
Yeah,
just,
of
it just ate me up inside.
course.
And she also said that her mother would always play her against her brother. Her brother was always the perfect. Now, my daughter grew up to go to law school. My daughter's an attorney.
Yeah,
But my son never graduated from high school, you know? But yet my ex exalted him. He was always the perfect one. "Oh, that's okay. He's just finding his way. That's okay." But my daughter says she always tried to really try to please her mom. I don't know. You studied this. I don't know. She's always tried to please her mom and go over and above. She goes, "That's why I wanted to be a lawyer, because I saw mom always writing these things, because when she was growing up, she was told, 'Oh, your dad's always got me in court. Oh, this is just horrible. Oh, your dad
oh,
got me in court again.' And I've just got," she goes, "Okay." So she just said, "When I want to save mom. I want to save mom from dad, because dad's always got her in court, you
yeah,
know? And, yeah, and, so there's that. But when she told me that, it just broke my heart, to hear that my you're just like your dad.
yeah. In a negative way, not in a good.
Never a positive way. Never a positive way, you know? So so you asked the question, what does it look like? It looks like just letting go. You just have to. You just have to move on, because at that point, I wound up losing the job at the major soft drink thing. They weren't going to keep that up. The job losses, the relationship losses. You just, like I said, the PTSD. There was one point. Abby, I was in bed for 2 weeks. I don't remember eating. I didn't go to work. Obviously, I lost my job. You know what I'm saying? It's just a depression sets in. There's nothing you can, you're just stuck. And then once you slip out of it, you go, "Look, man, I got bills to pay. I got a mortgage. I got a car out here I got to pay for." But by then you've lost your job, and you just got to find a way to, as my dad said, put the shovel down, because you've dug yourself into this hole, and you're like, okay, you've lost that job, and you get another one, and you fall into this depression again, and you lost that job, and you know, you find yourself going back and forth to Belgium 3, 4, 5 times a year, and you've lost that job, and it's just this major hole that you find yourself into over the course of 4 to 5 years. Finally, what it looks like you focusing on you. And it goes back to what that FBI agent said. He says, they'll find you one day. Lo and behold, 21 years later, this guy was right. I hate to say it, he was right. I didn't like it at the time. I thought he was a
Of
jerk.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's you focus on you.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but so I'll go back to the phone call. Um, that and during the course of that phone call, yeah, my daughter had told me about that. Also during the course of that phone call, and I do have my daughter's permission to say that. And this also broke my heart, and that is uh during all of this time, my daughter also said, and I know you put this out on social media, so I'll just say that she was SA, you know, and that really, she was I think 4 or 5 years old when that happened. And to know that my ex had put her in a situation where she was SA'd and I wasn't there to protect her.
She wasn't safe.
She
Yeah.
wasn't safe. Really, really upset me because
Yes.
it never was brought up in court, you know? And it really, as a father, especially with everything that's going on now, I'll just leave it at that, to hear that, it really makes you mad because as a father, you want to be there to protect your child, boys and girls. But to hear that your little girl, by our mother's boyfriend's, I think it was her brother, her boyfriend's brother.
Oh.
Yeah. Boyfriend's
Uh-huh.
brother. They were vacationing and it was by a boyfriend's brother and your little 4 or 5 year old daughter, you know? When she told me that, it makes you want to hurt multiple people, you know? And she shared that with me. Obviously, that was a shock. I had never heard anything. She had shared that with me. The other thing I had learned during this phone call, well, no, other thing I had learned, because shortly after that, my children both of them, both Kevin Jr. and Tyler, had come to visit me. I learned that my son never graduated high school. You know, uh, I learned that he was considered at one point, I don't know what it's called here in the States, incorrigible. And his mother couldn't control him, and she had actually had him put in a reform school. And for, I think he said it was like, it was like a good 4 months.
Mhm.
And he told me, he said that he would never forgive her for it. But obviously, I mean, I think he's since changed that position. But, and yeah, that was tough to hear, because I think, mothers and fathers love differently, you know, and I think parents in general, I once heard this statement that said, parents don't love equally, they love adequately. And I think that when a man is there in a especially a boy child's life, you know, you I think there's a different impact that can be made, and I certainly believe, and I think that he's on a better path now. Uh and I hope it's because after our visit, I hope I had an impact on him, especially now with our multiple conversations, um, that I played a role in how he's doing now, but, yeah. So, um, that's that really upset me too to know, because he comes from an educated family, my family, we come from master's degrees. We have several doctorate degrees in our family. My father was valedictorian of his high school. My mother has a nursing degree. We don't not grad high school is the least you can do. That's what I told him.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
least, how do you not graduate high school? It's because you know. So,
Where
um,
are they now? Are they in Belgium or are they here?
my daughter actually lives in Brussels, and as I said today, she called me and said that she's engaged
Yes.
as of today or over this Valentine's Day weekend. And
Nice.
my son still lives with his mother uh, there in Belgium, and he is now a manager of I'll just call it like a little uh, child's theme park or something like that. So he's on his way.
How old is he? Around 27 or
Yes,
26?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
27, yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah.
So, yep. So I can say though, luckily, we know with my friend James, and I had a very supportive circle that got me through this. Especially with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Uh, Marcia Gilmore Turles. Like I say, if there's an angel on this earth, man, our all of our conversations, anytime I called, I could just say whatever I needed to say for as long as I needed to say it. And you as well. Team Hope was a big help to me as well. And yeah, yeah. I mean, and there's so much more to say, but today as it stands, I'm much, much closer to my daughter now, after that phone call a couple of years ago. She's made several visits here today. Um, I'm still in counseling uh today. And yeah, and I'm just learning how to cope still.
Yes.
Still, you can still hear my voice cracks
I know. Yes.
as I tell these stories. So, but it's hard not to, I'll be honest, it's hard not to hate. It's hard not to hate. It's hard not to hate the system. It's hard not to hate, you know, even our own system. I remember when the DA called me up and says, "Hey, we're going to pull the red notice from this. It's been 20 years." And I'm like, "No, why?" And he goes, "It's been 20 years. What do you want us to do?" And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It's like, if it'd been me, you would have my black behind under the jail. He goes, maybe, maybe not, but it's not
Yeah.
the case.
Yeah.
But it's hard not to hate. It's hard not to hate the system. It's hard not to hate the X. It's hard not to hate the FBI. It's hard not to hate, the judge that fell asleep. It's hard not to hate everything. So that's where the PTSD comes from. It's just hard not to, it's difficult. It's still a very difficult thing for me.
I can
Yeah,
see that.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm just, I honor you for sharing your pain with us like this. It just, I mean, I can see what it's doing to you. And, I wish I could take the pain away. I really do. And
It is what it
I,
is.
yeah, you're a good man. You're
Oh,
a good
thank
man, Kevin.
thank you,
Yeah.
Abby.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you're a
And,
good lady, Abby.
thanks.
If
And
people
I just
only knew the thousands upon thousands of people that Abby has helped at
thank you.
through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and also Team Hope. Thousands of people.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Kevin.
If people only knew the work that you've done. So, yeah,
Thank you.
truly.
So, one thing, what's one thing that you would like to leave our listeners with? What do you want them to know? It's a tough one.
One thing. Uh, One, don't give up hope. If this ever happens to you, don't give up hope. Um, and don't get stuck. I just remember being stuck so many times. And I just remember you and Marsha calling me and say, "Get do something, do something. You're just unstuck." And I was like, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do," because you can't believe that this is happening to you. There's somebody who
Yes.
you pledged your life to, and and you've had children with, and you bought a house with, and you that would
Yes.
actually do this to you. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Somebody you pledged your love to and
Exactly.
trusted and yeah.
Trust it, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
it was just like uh I'll say his name. Dr. Whitaker told me all those many years ago. He goes, "Man, you're this person." He goes, he said, "You're gonna have to cut your losses." And if you ever find yourself in this type of a situation, seek help immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. Uh, because um it is not easy to go through. Not easy. My ordeal of the man from the time that that particular magistrate had made that comment in court, it was like 18 months to 2 years to till I saw my children again, you know? And it was tough. It was tough. It's not an easy thing to go through. It really isn't. It
But
really, really isn't. So,
but that's very wise, to tell people to hold on to hope. Don't give up. Keep going. Yeah. Absolutely. Because
absolutely.
there is hope.
There
And
is.
yes, I'm one of the detectives who was on my son's case told me every morning when you wake up, say, "Today I am one day closer to finding my son." And
Absolutely.
it's a true statement, you know, and hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's what helped
Absolutely.
me go. That's what helped me.
Absolutely. And the FBI is not all bad, because I tell you, when I went to Indianapolis,
Mhm.
and because the one in Cleveland, I don't mind saying this, the one in Cleveland was the one that made the statement. But when I went to Indianapolis and told that story, it was a female agent that says, "Wait a minute, this lady took your kids and they didn't do anything?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "And you have custody?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "This doesn't make any sense."
Right.
Yeah, she goes, "They didn't put a red notice on her? They didn't do that?" I was like, "No." "They didn't put a yellow notice on your kids?" I said, "No." She was like, "Stay right there." I went back there, happened that day. So
Yeah.
so so there's good and bad, you know?
I had some good FBI agents, very good
Yes. So
FBI.
there's I don't wanna
Yes.
just blow it out on the FBI,
Yeah.
So there's
No,
good,
but
but
just
that day, I was in front of, what is it? Attorney general or the whoever it is. I was in front of somebody, and
yeah,
those red notices got posted that day as
yeah.
soon as I showed them that paperwork. So there's good and bad. You just have to find that person who's gonna
Yes.
work for you, you know?
In anything though, Kevin, right? In
Absolutely.
anything, any
Absolutely.
occupation and
Yes.
anything, there's good and there's bad.
Always.
So,
Always,
yeah,
always, always.
I'm glad you found a good one.
Yeah. I've
Yeah,
I found the good one.
yeah.
I found the good one. Exactly.
But thank you so much. Hold on. I am now going to share my screen and show a poster of a missing child. Um, Here we go. This
Oh, look at the
child is Tobias McClung. Just a cutie. Look at that.
I
Such a
see.
cutie. Missing from Austin, Texas since December 11th, 2025. Tobias is 3 years old now. And he was last seen on December 11th, 2025, and he may be in the company of an adult female. If you believe you have seen Tobias, please call the Travis County Sheriff's Office at 512-974-0845 or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, 1-800 The Lost, 843-5678. And if you're listening and not on YouTube, if you can't not see the poster right now, please, I encourage you, go to missingkids.org and search for Tobias. You can see his picture there and all the other children who are missing. They're counting on you. They need your help.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Kevin, thank you so very much for being here today. And
All right.
to our listeners, thank you so very much for caring about family abduction, about missing children. We are so grateful to you that you are here, that you're listening to the stories and the experts on the podcast. I appreciate you very much. If you have any questions, you can email me at abduction.victimtosurvivor@gmail.com. And I hope that you will visit us again next Tuesday when we release another podcast about family abduction. Thank you so very much, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you.